Like we live as a family. We work all together, but we like have food together. We go to our friends' houses to watch UFC every Saturday and all that. And so we built a team thinking that we can grow up as a family. That was the ideal thing for us, And I think it's our biggest accomplishment.
Boo! 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 Rubbish! Filth! Slime! Muck! Boo! Boo! Boo!
It ain't easy being this cheesy. Caio Borralho and Mauricio Rufy were both handed their first losses in the UFC this past weekend, at the hands of Nasruddin Imavov and BSD. And of course, as is often the case with this bloodthirsty fan base, apparently all of the cool factor from these guys has been siphoned out with a straw. Now the Fighting Nerds is nothing but tumbleweeds and molehills, and perhaps the odd cactus. They were never that good after all, apparently. Well, here's what I have to say to that. Eat big gay balls. We had to figure this would happen sooner or later, as there's no way an entire camp of fighters could stay undefeated forever. But even though this kind of outcome was expected, sure, they started taking L's, and by that I mean the fan reaction, I'm still irritated at how quickly everyone has decided that the Aura Dead is in the red zone all of a sudden. Everyone's already writing Jean Silva's obituary for his fight against Diego Lopez next week, and sure, he could very much lose. I see it as kind of a 50-50 because both guys are maniacs. But I'm seeing way too much preemptive sorrow in here. This ain't a funeral yet. The Fighting Nerds have been truly a phenomenon in the UFC for the last couple years, or more so the past year in particular, with them shooting into the stratosphere. There are a shit ton of fighters under that banner, but the most prominent ones are Caio Borralho, Carlos Prates, Mauricio Rufy, and Jean Silva. There are a few other notables like Bruno Brazil and Mikhail Olejniczuk, but these guys right here are the four horsemen at the prow of the ship. We've seen plenty of gyms over the years spout out generational talent before. American Top Team churns out top tier competition pretty reliably. City Kickboxing had its day in the sun at one point, at the top of the totem pole. Remember back in 2021 when Trevor Whitman was coaching Kamaru Usman, Justin Gaethje, and Rose Namajunas? He felt like fucking Splinter back then, and these were all his prime Ninja Turtles. But I don't recall ever seeing a gym make itself known by the masses so quickly and in such emphatic fashion like the Fighting Nerds. All four of these guys were undefeated around the same time, climbing through their respective rankings, just absolutely brutalizing the competition, and then brandishing their trademark corny-ass nerd glasses afterwards in the interview. And the fact that with the signing of Mauricio Rufy last year, we had 4 divisions covered, with Silva at featherweight, Rufy at lightweight, Prates at welterweight, and Borralho at middleweight, made it feel like these guys were some kind of Brazilian malware that were crawling through every crevice of the sport and would eventually swallow it whole and each become champions. Kinda akin to the Three Kings era where Usman, Izzy, and Ngannou were all holding straps around the same time. So you had Caio Borralho join the UFC officially in 2022, racking up an impressive 7-fight win streak against names like Mikhail Olejniczuk, who, like I said, would end up joining the gym later, Abus Magomedov, Paul Craig, and Jared Cannonier, and also has a grappling win over Brendan Allen in the meantime to boot. Yeah, Carlos Prates, only been on the roster since early 2024, and he's picked up nothing but knockout wins over the likes of Trevin Giles, Charles Radke, Li Jingliang, Neil Magny, and most recently Jeff Neal. And again, all by thunderous fucking knockouts, followed by a nice healthy pull of a Marlboro, followed by a nice healthy pull of a Marlboro Red right after the fact. Absolute gargoyle behavior. Jean Silva has also only really been fighting in the promotion for about a year and a half, and is perhaps the most insanoid, maniacal, crazy person out of the lot of them, or in the UFC in general. He decks Weston Wilson, clobbers Charles Jourdain, goes up to lightweight for fun and obliterates Drew Dober, smashes through Melsik Bagdasarian, and manhandles Bryce Mitchell. Now his record's less proven in terms of name value, and the fact that he's getting a #1 contenders matchup off of one ranked win over Mitchell is kind of crazy, but he's no joke, probably the most entertaining fighter on the entire roster right now. So I don't think people really care. And then you have Mauricio Rufy joining last, who styles on Jamie Mullarkey, puts a beating on James Yontop, and sends Bobby Green into the ceiling with a pitch-perfect spinning kick. He definitely has the least impressive resume of the lot, but he definitely has the most finesse. And the second I saw him on Dana White's Contender Series, I knew he would be big, because he is every bit prime featherweight Conor McGregor in the way that he moves. It's actually uncanny. Again, Caio's been around for a few years at this point, but the others only just joined last year, and yet all of them have shot up in popularity in record time. I think any one of them could have done so on their own, but grouping themselves together like they're in some kind of murderous Brazilian boy band was honestly a genius play. You're not just tuning in for this guy or for that guy. You're tuning in for the Fighting Nerds brand itself. for the most part, because Bahalio isn't quite as ballistically capable as the others. When you're going into a Fighting Nerds bout, you know you're likely going to see something badass. It's basically the UFC equivalent of having a Michelin star. So overall, it's been really cool seeing just this Fighting Nerds behemoth just cruising through and crushing everything in its path. But the issue is, that sword has two edges. Because the second they started losing, doom and gloom foul. Carlos Prates was the first of them to drop a loss at the hands of Ian Gary a while back, where yeah, he got pretty soundly battered for the majority of that fight. I think most people just gave credit to how good Ian Gary actually is, and plus Carlos Prates rocked him to the end of that fight. But there were still some rumblings of, ooh, the Fighting Nerds are about to get fraud checked. Ooh, I eat banana, I am big dumb ape. Ooh, oh. But that would cool off when he bounced back with a stunning spinning back fist knockout of Jeff Neal. Hype was restored. Then we get to this past weekend, where two other nerds were upended and had their lunch money shaken out of their pockets, or so would have you believe. I saw so many thumbnails and titles and comments about how dominantly Caio Borralho got his ass handed to him against Imavov. You had like Sean Strickland chiming in to blame his overtraining for the loss. But I mean, while he got pretty soundly beaten, I wouldn't call it an ass whooping. In my mind, Caio took 2 rounds off him, and I don't give a monkey cock or monkey balls with the scorecards read. He definitely belongs in the top 5 with his skill set, and he'll be back and better. If you're asking me, I say make the Izzy fight. Now, the only one so far that I will agree was a bit of a yikes was Mauricio Rufy getting it pretty badly handed to him on a silver platter by BSD. Let's be real. If BSD is doing that to him, then Moicano is, Pimblett is, Dariush is, Gamrot is, Oliveira definitely is, Sarukian certainly is, and don't even bother mentioning Topuria. We're not seeing that fight. Rufy's ground game just isn't up to par to make it in the most stacked division in the sport. It's just not going to happen. I could see him having some good matchups with fellow strikers in there, but the grappling talent pool is too vast for his Mortal Kombat moves to work. I don't like abusing the term fraud check. This is a bit of a fraud check. However, it sucks that he kind of drags the Fighting Nerds down with him. Borralho and Prates lost to basically the #1 contenders, and Silva is going in there next week against the guy who literally just fought for the belt and made it competitive. But if he loses that one, then all we're going to hear is how the Fighting Nerds were never that good. Same story. And you know what? I think that is a big bunch of stinking baloney. And these same people will pretend they never said that when Silva starches Lerone Murphy, or Borralho gives Adesanya a hiding, or Prates batters Leon Edwards. Silliness and buffoonery.